Hi, everyone. So my name is Kenny, and I'm one of the co-founders of Manta Network. And for those of you guys that don't know, we are specifically focused on privacy for the Polkadot and Kusama ecosystems, and we deliver that privacy through zero-knowledge proofs. In the past, I talk a lot about privacy, why it's important, and all that stuff. So I figured I'd kind of change up the pace a bit for this conversation and focus more on like ZKPs, because we hear a lot about them. We don't really know what it's about, and I kind of just want to clarify a little bit. I understand that whatever you can see on this screen, right? Like essentially, we get it. ZKPs aren't really sexy, right? When you think about NFTs and metaverses and DeFi, et cetera, right? There's a lot of different topics, a lot of different innovation happening in Web3 that are just a lot cooler on the surface level. But I hope that this presentation can tell you a little bit otherwise about zero-knowledge proofs. And then I put healthcare at the bottom because, and also in quotes, because honestly, I don't know if healthcare is going to be using blockchain for the next 10 years. So don't let anyone else convince you otherwise. I have a lot of experience in that and can talk to you about it afterwards. But anyway, despite the fact that ZKPs aren't necessarily the sexiest topic when it comes to other things like metaverse or everything I just listed, it is a very hot topic. In fact, DevCon, which recently happened probably a month ago now, during DevCon, right, the largest developer conference in the world every single year, about 20 to 25% of the talks were all about ZK, everything about zero knowledge. So definitely developers are thinking about it. Also, if you read Vitalik's blogs, Vitalik himself talks about ZK a lot. In fact, out of his 15 blog posts this year, 3 of them were all around ZK. And so specifically, right, that boils down to 1 in 5 for those of you guys that are good at math. And then finally, right, like a lot of the VCs are getting into ZK, right? And so the question is like, okay, why is this so hot, and why is everyone talking about it, but what the heck is it, right? So what is a zero knowledge proof? This is my driver's license. This has all of my information on it, right? And I've conveniently blacked out all the stuff that reveals any information about me. But for those of you guys that go out to a bar, go out to a club, whatever it may be, right? This is the information you have to show to a doorman every single time, right? You don't know that doorman, but you give him your driver's license to prove that you're over a certain age. But in proving that you're over a certain age, you reveal all this information about yourself. You give them your face, you give them your legal name, where you actually live, right? What your signature looks like so they can forge it, your birthday, how tall you are, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, if someone picked this thing off the road, on the side of the road, they could just find you and stalk you and you wouldn't even know it, right? This is like way too much information to be giving to a doorman who you're just trying to prove that you're over 21. And so what does a zero knowledge proof do? A zero knowledge proof would essentially imagine this driver's license, except there's no information on it. But just the fact that you show him that you have this card, right? He already understands, okay, this person's over 21. That's what a zero knowledge proof is. You can prove that you're over 21, but you don't have to reveal any of the information on here. Yeah, I know that sounds like a very simple concept. There's a lot of math behind it. And, happy to discuss the details after this. It is a lightning talk after all, so I'm trying to go lightning speed. But what are ZKPs used for? I think, especially in the recent sort of trend of zero knowledge proofs, a lot of us associate ZKP with privacy, right? Because it is powerful for privacy, but I want to distinguish here, if you guys can see it, that a zero knowledge proof, or building zero knowledge proofs, is not about building privacy. Zero knowledge proofs are used to build a lot of the fundamental tools that will be used in Web3, right? And so what I mean by that is that the tools for privacy, right, which Manta Network we're working on, tools for scalability. So when you think of like ZK rollups and ZK layer 2s, the tools for attestation being able to verify certain attributes, being able to verify yourself without revealing information, right? These are all sort of combinations of things that are fundamental features for a lot of the applications that you want to see on chain. I don't know if you guys can read this, so I'll read some of these off to you. So decentralized identity, obviously with the with the driver's license example that I just gave, as well as strategic gaming, right? I don't know how many of you guys have played like, quote unquote blockchain games, but blockchain games these days are just centralized games with like some token transactions and some NFT transactions. No offense to any blockchain games out there. I'm sure like there's a longer roadmap, but in the current state, right, like it's just centralized gaming. But how do you move blockchain gaming fully on chain? How can you have a strategic game, something as simple as Texas Hold'em, poker? How do you have poker on chain when you have no ZK, when you have no privacy, right? Because if I was playing against the Kusama, right, and we were playing a friendly game of Texas Hold'em, and I want to decide whether or not I want to bet, and this game was fully on chain, all I have to do is check the blockchain to see the state of his hands to know exactly which cards he's holding, right? And so like there's no possibility of on-chain strategy games without zero-knowledge proofs. So I hope that kind of gives you a summary that zero-knowledge proofs are important beyond just privacy, right? For scalability reasons, for gaming reasons, basically building out the fundamentals for all the applications that we will be using in Web3 and the Web3 that we envision to be fully on-chain and decentralized. ZKP is a core of that. And so I talk a lot about ZKP, right? And the reason why is because that's all we do at Manta. So I know that, actually, before I go on, I mean, how many of you guys have all heard of ZKPs before, right? I mean, raise your hand if you have not, have heard of ZKPs before. Okay, cool. What about have not? Okay, all right, cool. Okay, so most of you guys have heard about ZKPs, but you probably don't know where all the innovation's happening. It's actually all happening at Manta Network. Like, I wish I was bragging, but it's actually kind of true. And so you can kind of proxy it by saying that it's all happening in the Polkadot ecosystem, because we are specifically working on ZK. That's all we do. Day in, day out, ZK, ZK, ZK. All right, and so I'm going to give you some examples here. So out of the box, there's a problem with zero-knowledge proofs. And this is why a lot of people don't really use them, because they have this legacy problem that doesn't really exist today, but it used to exist. That problem that used to exist is that zero-knowledge proofs are slow. But let's dissect that, right? What does slow mean? It just means they're computationally intensive, and the amount of time it takes to generate a zero-knowledge proof, because they are generated most securely on your local device, like your laptop or your cell phone, it depends on what sort of device you have. So if you have like a new generation MacBook, right out of the box, it could take 1 to 2 minutes to generate. But if you have like a 1999 laptop, I don't even know what those look like, but it could take like 10 minutes or an hour to generate, right? And so like there's a lot of variability, it's slow, and so ultimately it gives a negative user experience. And so people say, can't use zero-knowledge proofs, they're too slow. Okay, whatever. So when we set out to build these zero-knowledge proving systems, one of the things we said was, okay, we've got to optimize this to be as fast as possible. And so when we released the first version of our prover to generate the zero-knowledge proof, we actually reduced that time from 1 to 2 minutes all the way down to 15 to 30 seconds. And this was at the end of last year. And then beyond that, about like 3-4 months ago, we reduced that prover speed to 2 to 5 seconds, right? And so, I mean, we went from 2 minutes to 2 seconds in the matter of a year with our awesome cryptography team. That was like, I'm just the one talking about it. I wasn't the actual brains behind it, so like, don't applaud me. But thank you for all the applause. Thank you. But this type of prover speed it sounds cool and impressive, but it has to be relatable. It has to be relative to something, right? There has to be a benchmark. And so here's the benchmark. We're 10 times faster than Zcash's prover speed. And this is confirmed by Zuko, who is one of the core contributors to Zcash. We had a great conversation with him where he was like, hey, I heard you guys are like 10 times faster than us. Can you show me like how that works? And then we show him how it works. And he said, hey, thanks, that's great. And thanks for all the nice words about Zcash. So yeah, so I mean, I think that's a testament to how powerful of an innovator in the ZK space that Manta Network is. And by proxy, being in the Polkadot ecosystem, Polkadot right now is a powerhouse for ZK. But we don't stop there. There's more. So we also recognize the fact that, despite the fact that we are a powerhouse, maybe I've overused that word. Despite that fact, we recognize that there's a lot of talent that needs to be, I guess, located, identified, and brought in to further innovate on the ZK side that we don't necessarily have the time or capacity for. And so we set out to do what's called the Z Prize. So the Z Prize is actually an initiative created by a lot of different ZK-focused groups, including ourselves. Polkadot was a project sponsor for our Z Prize. And other participants in our Z Prize include Aztec, Mina, Alio, right? And so we're all working together to try to make the prover speed even faster than it already is. And there's a lot of nuances to what that means, which I won't really explain here. But the point is that despite all this innovation so far, we're still continuing to innovate. And so on the ZK side, right, we know we've gotten a long way, but we feel like we've got a longer way to go. So that's exactly what we're doing. So what's up today? I think for those of you guys that have been following Polkadot news, you might have seen on Decrypt recently that Manta Network is planning the largest trusted setup in history. So for those of you that don't know, a trusted setup, right, like analogously, you can think of it like, in order for us to create a zero-knowledge proof, that zero-knowledge proof needs a password. And every time we do something, that password gets triggered. But how do we create the password? If I was just creating the password myself, then it's very insecure, right? If someone held a gun to my head and said, give me the password, I'd probably give that person the password. So how do we do this in a more secure manner? We do it in a quote-unquote decentralized manner. Every single person that participates gets to create one piece of that password. And so I write in the first letter, and then Kusama writes in the second letter, and then Astar team puts in like the next 5 to 10 strings, and then everyone around the world kind of generates one piece of it until we get this big giant password that is much more secure than if Kenny decided to just generate it himself in his basement. And so that's the trusted setup. And the participation in the trusted setup creates that secure password for that ZKP in the future, which we're going to be launching on Polkadot. And so right now, we've gotten about 7,800 registrations, which is awesome, because the largest trusted setup in history before that was 1,114 contributors. And that was actually by Tornado Cash. So we're like pretty far ahead. But there's still some time left. And so what I want to do is I kind of want to encourage you guys to also join in on this trusted setup if you can. It's really fun. It takes like 2 minutes, and you get to be part of Polkadot history and ZKP history and Manta history and Web3 history and maybe the Guinness Book of World Records if you're there listening. But yeah, so. Other than that, Manta Network, if I haven't said so before, we are a ZK powerhouse, and we've got a lot of things going on. And a lot of things, meaning that, we've got our testnet live right now. It is an incentivized testnet, so please, go at it, find bugs, leave feedback, give us all the feedback. And that's on Dolphin on Rococo. And then we have our Kusama deployment, which is Calamari, which we just migrated over to delegated proof of stake. And so if you're looking to be a collator, definitely check out Calamari. And then Manta Network on Polkadot, we've got that coming soon. As soon as we got Manta Pay launched on Calamari, we're going to be focusing on the Manta Network Parachain and getting that launched. So yeah, that's us. That's Manta. That's ZK. And hope you're pumped. Let's do some trusted setup, guys.